So, you want me to just read it now?
Go ahead and go whenever you're ready.
Perfect. This is John Diggs from johndiggs.com, and you're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to get out of your big ass box.
I love it. All right, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Perfect.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Alison Jacobson, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, this is going to be a blast. I think, yeah, just looking at your one sheet, I was like, okay, she's been through the ringer.
Yeah, but I came out the other side. It's all good.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of talking about walking through that dark hallway in life, right?
Yeah.
Where you're scared and sad and struggling and screaming at God and you're pissed and all that stuff goes wrong. And then you come out the other side.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting about that? So you and I were talking before this, and we're both from Los Angeles. And I always give the analogy, I'm sure at some point when you were there, you were experiencing an earthquake. I was there for the Northridge earthquake.
Yikes.
And life is like an earthquake, right? You're standing there, the whole world's shaking. You're not sure how everything's going to land. You're just planting yourself in the doorway, waiting for it to stop shaking. And eventually it does.
Yes.
You got to brace yourself.
Yeah.
But then it stops and you figure out where you're left standing.
Yeah. I have earthquake stories.
Oh yeah.
So you are the midlife maverick. So let's not forget about doing that part.
No.
So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
So what I love today is I have a whole host of clients because we're recording this at the beginning of the year. And so many women at the end of the year say, I'm done. I'm either done with my marriage, I'm done with not fulfilling myself, I'm done with making all of these New Year's resolutions that I don't stick to, and I've got to do something. And I am that something. I am that kick in their ass to push them off the diving board and say, go for it. Go for it. You're going to hit water. You're going to be okay. And so that's why I love this time of year, because I work with so many women who are ready to do that, who are finally deciding that now is their time.
Time to get off the couch, right?
Time to get off the couch, time to, really wave that freak flag if you want to,
right,
to decide I'm going to get purple hair this year, or I'm going to go take karaoke, or I'm going to pole dance, whatever it is.
I love it.
It's time to decide to do that.
I love that. That's cool. Just start living.
Right. Right.
You're right.
You know what I love?
The year kind of has like an ebb and flow kind of thing.
Oh,
right.
It does.
You get to the holidays and it's just like all of your time suck. It's like it's like a vortex of time. It's like, I've got to do all this crap. And then you come out the other end and you're just exhausted. Yeah.
Well, and then you're also forced into this false sense of reality where you come together with all your relatives and you're supposed to be merry and jolly and all of that stuff. And you hate great Aunt Edna. You don't want to see Aunt Edna again.
Right.
But you gotta. And you got to deal with that. And then meanwhile, you've got the in-laws coming over who you've never liked. And maybe you have the adult children who are telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing. And it's like, oh no, you're not doing that. And so that it's like, okay, let's just get rid of all of that. And sometimes we have to set boundaries and say, my time. It's me. I'm doing whatever the hell I want. Like my goal when I lived in LA, and I told you I was near Venice Beach and Marina Del Rey and Playa del Rey. I wanted to open a taco truck on Venice Beach.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Right?
Yeah. That would be great. and
Yeah.
then just get rid of your car and buy a bike and maybe show up to meetings.
But like I could live on the beach in Southern California,
Yeah.
right? It's always 70.
Yeah.
It's nice, no responsibility. I make great tacos. I sell great tacos. That's the life.
Yeah, it's great. When I lived in LA, right? And we went anywhere else in the world on vacation. And then finally you get back home and I'm like, okay, oh, my wife went to work. I have a day off. I think I'll go sit in the pool, right? And it's like, why did I leave?
Right. Exactly.
It is a really nice spot. I know why I moved. I moved because I didn't want to pay the taxes, but that's a different story. It's a great place to visit for me.
It is. And I moved because I'm an only child and I really knew I wanted my kids growing up next to my parents. So I moved back to the East Coast.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
East Coast. Wow.
I know.
Hey, I'm originally from the Midwest, so when I go see family, it's Michigan and Wisconsin in the winter. Yeah, like November, December, June. June's nice. I'll take June every time, but
you get 1 month. That's a really small window.
Yeah, even June can get oppressively humid. But anyway, I digress. So let's go back in time and talk about where Alison Jacobson grew up. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in a very small town outside of New York City, Port Chester, New York. Woohoo, go Port Chester. Wow. And it was great. I mean, I had this wonderful little Leave It to Beaver background, but my family was the traditional, 9 to 5, go to work, come home. That's how you make a living. You don't really love what you do. You just do something.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I always joke that my mom must have had an affair with an IBM executive or something, because that was just not me. Like, even then, I knew that didn't feel right to me.
Okay.
And so I started out as a theater major in New York City.
Wow.
I did theater, I did modeling, all that. And then one day it occurred to me, I love money too much and I don't want to be an out of work actress waiting tables. Just couldn't do it. So I was like, all right.
I get it. It's like, I don't want to starve for this art all my life. Right.
So I changed to broadcasting and got a great internship at Good Morning America and got into the broadcasting thing, and then moved out to LA because I also realized I hated the cold weather.
Good for you.
So,
Me too.
yeah. So went to LA and worked at a post-production company. I was a producer. And then all of a sudden they said to me, hey, do you want to write some press releases for us? And I'm like, okay, all right, sure. And one thing led to another. Now, I do have to digress for a second.
Sure.
I've always been the type of person that figured out how to achieve and make more money and do it in a smart way. So working my way through college, I was a cocktail waitress at a hotel.
Okay.
And I worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. And then it occurred to me, Sunday nights were really slow. And why was I also having a bartender there who I had to split my tips with? So I convinced them to let me bartend and cocktail waitress so I didn't have to split my tips with anyone.
We're just sitting around doing nothing anyway.
Yeah,
nobody's at the bar.
Right. So I've always figured out ways to hustle and make more money.
Nice.
And so they came to me, they wanted me to do some press releases. I was like, great. And then I realized, well, I could do this for other businesses too. Wow. And so I opened a PR firm. I was 24 years old. It was called Creative Exposure.
Okay.
And I would do PR for production companies, post-production companies, music companies. We did all the high-end commercials, which was awesome. I hired 3 women, had a really cool office on Venice Beach. I knew eventually I'd want to move back to the East Coast. So I started being bi-coastal and took on New York companies too. And at 28 years old, a company approached me to sell it to them. And I sold my agency to one of the largest firms in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you?
Yeah.
I bet you made some money.
I made some good money. And I negotiated with them that I was moving back to the East Coast.
Okay.
And so I did that, and it was a great experience. I stayed for a while, but I was just always an entrepreneur. And here's the interesting thing, and this is this origin story, which is really interesting. From a business perspective, I've always been willing to take risks and do things, but from a personal fitness idea and just personal, I never took risks. I felt, and that was kind of where it came from with my parents, like, oh no, you could get hurt. Don't do this. So physically, I was always really timid. But from a business perspective, I was like, hell yeah,
lion.
I'm going for it.
It's weird how people are wired differently like that, you know?
It is. And I do think a lot comes from how we were brought up and the stories we were told. And my mom was awesome. Like, my mom was like, you can do anything you want, go for it. But when it came to sports, it was like, oh no, like
Don't
that seems dangerous because it wasn't sports people.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's like, I didn't have that sort of messaging. So like my mom, she was like a stay at home, like she would babysit for neighbors. And then she had a job, maybe two. She had a job before I was born. That was like a real grown-up job in like a paper mill or something, you know, one of those industrial Midwest jobs.
Yeah.
But when I knew her, she never had a job. I think she had like one job working in like a restaurant kitchen. She hated it and she quit. Right.
Yeah.
So she was always like the stay-at-home mom. And then my dad worked in like a factory like his whole life. Like one place. And he's been retired now for like a long time, right?
Yeah.
But when we drive by, he's like, oh, there's prison, you know? That was
Isn't that sad?
It's sad. Now I feel bad and I say thank you, Dad, you know, for surviving prison for all, you know, your whole, you know, adult life.
Did you ever bake him a cake with a nail file in it over there?
I was oblivious to the fact that he was in prison. You know, he was just dad, and he would come home and you know, do his thing, right?
But like, and it's interesting because those origin stories either make us go that way or go the complete opposite. And like my mom and dad totally supported me, but no one in my family to this day still understands what I do. Right. Like, when I was in PR, they're like, what? You do what? They don't get it.
Yeah. So we did have a couple of entrepreneurs in my family. Like my mom's two brothers both had businesses. And then their kid, my cousin, Sherry, she had more than one business. So there were business people around, but that gene was not existent in me. How's that sound? Yeah. I did not have that wiring. And it took me a long time to figure that out about me, you know?
Yeah.
Like you go into all these like entrepreneurial trainings and they say, look, this is not for everybody. You have to figure out if this is for you.
Right.
And I would just skip over that and go, well, it is now. But to be honest, it never was. It wasn't there. So anyway, as a public service announcement, take that check mark seriously.
Yeah.
Do you really want to do this? No.
Well, and that's what's interesting because when I sold my agency and I was working for the other PR firm, it was in New York City. So I was on a train in the morning at 7 a.m. I wasn't home till 8 at night. I had my kids. And then I left there because I realized that I really was an entrepreneur.
Right.
And so I started doing spokesperson work and consulting and stuff like that. What happened, though, is all of a sudden, the women in town who had never seen me before, all of a sudden I'm working from home and they assume, oh, you're working for yourself. That's easy. Come out, play tennis, come out, do lunch. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like I am working harder for myself than ever.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Yeah. From the outside, it's like you think, like when you're in your job, like me, and you're sitting in your cube and you're like, you've got nothing to do and you're pretending to work all day. Anything is better than that. You just don't want to do that. That's the truth of it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't want to do that. I mean, every job, it seemed like I won't say every job, but a lot of my jobs were just like, you'd sit there and you ask yourself, here I am pretending to work again.
Yeah. I mean,
what the hell am I doing? Yeah.
That's just no way to live.
Right. It's like my dad in the prison, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Sad.
And I think a lot of our parents in that generation were in the prison because they wanted that gold watch after 35 years of service. And it's like, no. And you talk to people who aren't entrepreneurs and they're like, well, I want the security of a job. Are you kidding me?
Right. It's like no the least secure. Yeah. It's like the least secure. I get it. That I got.
Yeah.
Because, you can just be arbitrarily fired and they don't care. They don't.
100%.
They don't, and if you quit It's like, oh my God, you're leaving us in a lurch,
Yeah.
and they'll just guilt you to hell, right? But if they
Yeah.
let you go, it's like, well, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
It's a corporate decision.
And, I mean, that's the good thing
They're not
about
even
being
going
an
to talk to
entrepreneur.
you.
Right. I know.
Right.
But that's the good thing about being an entrepreneur, right? Like we see what's coming down the road. And
Right.
so, if it's not looking good, you change directions. You kind of go with that. That's my other Southern California analogy. Instead of fighting the tide, you ride the wave.
There you go. Yes. So let's talk about some of these, some of your darker times, because you really were put through the ringer, and to come presenting so smiley and energetic,
and I lived to tell the tale.
Right.
Yeah. So unfortunately, my first son died of sudden infant death syndrome in 1997.
Ouch.
And
That's
that
like the worst.
Yeah, and that profoundly, needless to say, changed me. It made me more empathetic because you realize you can look at anybody on the street and not know their story. And
right.
all of us have a story.
Totally.
Every one of us.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what made me realize, okay, I need to do something to help other families. I need to help other moms. And while SIDS was unpreventable and unpredictable, childhood accidents are preventable. So I was known as the safety mom. Okay. And I did a lot of on-camera work. I did blogging, consulting about child safety. And that was kind of my way of giving back to my son.
Wow.
Went on, had my next son, who is now 25, and he has intellectual disabilities. So that was the next iteration. I went from just child safety to advocating for families with kids with special needs.
That's got to be tough.
It's tough. It's really tough, especially because, and I'm not going to get all into it, but schools don't like to admit when it's intellectual disabilities because then they have to finance their education for much longer. Right. And so I was sent down all these different paths, and that's what made me become an advocate because you if you
I've heard this before
for your child.
Yeah. No one will. Right.
No.
The system does not have advocates built in. Right.
They do not. No. And if you don't have time, if you are in a profession where you can't take time off in the middle of the day to go to these meetings and to sit on phone calls, it's tough.
Right.
And so
just like you have another job, right?
It is 100%.
100%. Yeah.
So that happened, went on to have two wonderful girls. And then my marriage fell apart and I was the primary breadwinner. And all my money was taken up with legal fees, with everything else. And I had to declare bankruptcy.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
You lose everything.
Yep. Lost everything.
Wow.
Lost everything. And so that was tough too. But I got to tell you, and that's why I do what I do now in terms of coaching. When you face your greatest fears and know you live to survive it, nothing's scary anymore.
That's true. I tell that story when I tell my depression/suicide story. Right? Like, I don't want to get into it, but once you get over a certain hump, right? It's like the volume of everyday life gets like cranked way lower. It's like,
isn't it amazing?
I just survived like rat poison, right? And I walked through a day, right? And I'm still here. Don't feel great, but all that inspection at the job. Not so scary now, Right. There's something about surviving something serious, life-threatening, losing everything. It's just like you've lived the darkness, right? You're not imagining it. You did it.
Right. Exactly.
Most of the time we just sort of imagine and we work ourselves up, right? But you did it, Yeah. Doing it is actually more beneficial, I think.
Well, and that's what I talk to my clients about. It's like, imagine the worst, and then let's play the game of what would you do? If this happened, then what? And if you can keep unraveling it, there's always a solution.
Always. Right.
And by the way, I'm glad there was a solution for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I'm still here.
Yeah.
That was
I'm glad
a
you're
long
still
time
here
ago.
too.
Long time ago.
But it does, right? It puts a lot of things in perspective.
Totally.
But then it's also, and I'm sure you've heard this too, when people say, I could never do what you did. I didn't choose this.
Yeah.
Not like I chose it.
Yeah. I'm starting to get like this sort of like goes into the world of faith and belief and like spiritual stuff, but it seems to me like I only do the things I have to do. I think we all do the things we have to do. Why did you do that? I had to, right?
Yeah.
It didn't seem like I had to, but I had to, right?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things that I did that people go, wow, you did that?
Right.
Why'd you do that? I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this podcast. Like, why did you do a podcast? Well, it seemed like fun at that time, but I have to, right?
Right.
I don't really know why, but I have to. Right.
And that's kind of being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Like we have to do it. I can't imagine not being who I am and doing what I'm doing. I just can't.
Right. You could like thinking about going out and getting a job is like, it makes you.
Right. I did. I just visually faked. I'm like, oh my God.
No, couldn't do it. Can't do it.
You can't make me.
I refuse.
Right. It's true because I would be lousy at it.
Totally. Yeah. You're not the only entrepreneur I've said that to. Like I had a friend who was a big time multimillionaire entrepreneur in Australia. And he said, yeah, I went out and I had a job at Microsoft and I went out and had a job at Google because I was trying to retire. I just sold my business. And he said, I had a really good time, but I was a shitty employee.
Yeah.
All he was doing was like renting planes and not showing up to work. I was like, okay. It's weird what, rich people can get away with sometimes. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, God, I know. Yeah. No, but yeah, we do make shitty employees because we think outside the box.
Right.
We don't accept no. We figure out other ways to do things, and that doesn't always work.
And pretend to work. Right. That's unacceptable. I can't
exactly.
do that. Yes. Most people do. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did a lot. How's that sound?
I think.
Have you ever had a job where you sat at a desk and pretended to work? Did that ever happen to you?
Not a desk. When I was 16 years old, I worked in retail and I would stand around. That made I'd be hanging on the coat. Right. It was horrible.
Right. Yeah. Most people are pretending to work all the time. Like now when I'm walking around the casinos, because we walk around casinos, mostly to get steps. Right. It's kind of like the mall walking in Vegas. Right. Yes. But you see all the pretty young girls standing at the, what do they call that? The hostess desk outside the fancy restaurant. And they're all sort of doing some version of pretending to work. Mm-hmm. That's hard.
I know, right?
So
How
boring.
many times can you check the names? Exactly.
Well, you're just sitting there, messing around with a screen that doesn't even have internet on it, probably. I don't know what they're doing, but they look busy.
Well, I think that's the other thing. Most people equate being busy with being successful. And they think that in order to, I have to work 18 hours a day, otherwise I'm not successful. And it's like, no, it's just the opposite. You could work 4 hours a day and be extremely successful. And if you're overworking, you're not creative.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of wheel spilling. I think it's there's certain areas of the economy that are really, really focused on how things look.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I remember even being in the Air Force, right? My desk was really close to where the commander was, or maybe not the commander, but whoever the officer was in charge. Right. And then right next to his office was the chief. So I was an enlisted guy. The chief is the chief enlisted guy. And super cool guy. Right. And one of my coworkers and I are just basically doing nothing. Right. And BSing, right? As you do, you're not always busy all the time.
Yeah.
And he just kind of quietly comes up to me and says, hey, the boss is here. So if you're going to do nothing, don't do it here. You can get away with that in the military, right? A little bit of honesty goes a long way. It's I get it. You don't have anything to do. Go screw around somewhere else.
Not be seen.
And right, because the boss is right there. Don't you get it?
Oh my God.
So, okay. So let's get into some of these, how you build resilience. Because I like that. It's one of my favorite words. because it goes to what we were just talking about. You kind of have to go through like, some dark stuff, right, to build this
lot of stuff.
resilience. Yeah.
Well, building resilience, quite frankly, is just keep doing it. Like whether you want to do it or not. So we didn't completely fast forward, but and talk about faith. So my son died. I sat on the board of directors of this organization, First Candle, which deals with sudden infant death syndrome. And then fast forward 15 years, and I am now the CEO of that organization.
Wow.
So in addition to my coaching and my speaking, I also run this nonprofit. And it really felt like full circle. And we are a charity partner for the New York City Marathon.
Okay.
So every year I'm in New York City and cheering all our runners around. And, I mean, if you've never been to the marathon, it just is just so exciting. You get sucked into this. There's hundreds of people. And I said, I'm going to run the New York City Marathon. And I was like, I'll do it when I'm 60. And then I said, that's a load of BS. I was 56 at the time. I'm like, I'm running it next year because just putting it off is just, that's an excuse.
Yeah.
And it was also going to be my son's 25th anniversary from when he passed. So now, mind you, I've never run in my life. So my life.
Ouch.
And so I went home and I said to my husband, I'm running the New York City Marathon. And he's like, I don't know about that, honey. I went, game on, sucker. So that was all I needed. Right?
Thank you for that.
So,
I needed that. Tell me I'm not going to do it. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Exactly. It's all I need. It's all I need.
Right.
So I start training because it's December at my YMCA.
Did you hire a coach?
No. So I didn't know what to do. And this is the way I've been successful all my life is doing things I didn't know I couldn't do.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Sure.
So I got on a treadmill and I start running. And just someone like you said, what's your training module? I said, Forrest Gump. I'm just going to keep running till I stop. Like I training programs. I had no clue.
It could work. Right.
So I went from running 1 mile to 3 miles. Then I did find an online training program.
Good call.
But this is resilience. I went from running 1 mile to 26 miles in a year. Wow. And there were tons of times I didn't want to get out of bed or tons of times I wasn't feeling it. You got to just freaking do it.
Totally.
And that gets back to being an entrepreneur too. Like you have got to see that goal in your head. You've got to understand that there are going to be setbacks. Right. But if you have that great and powerful why, you will get past that and you will be resilient. It takes that great and powerful why though.
It sounds like the great and powerful Oz.
Oz, right? Yeah.
So talk about the great and powerful why. I get it because like you started with one really great and powerful why for SIDS. Yeah. So what other sorts of whys do you have in your life that you're working on?
Well, so the great and powerful why of why. So I wrote my book. I ran the New York City Marathon in November of 22 and I released my book.
Okay.
In October 2022.
Oh, wow.
And it's daily inspirations for midlife women, a guide to peace, joy, confidence, and abundance.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. And my powerful why for everything I do is I remember how defeated, how scared, how insecure, how I was filled with self-doubt when I went through my divorce and when I declared bankruptcy. And I remember, I don't know if you've ever been divorced, but walking into that courtroom, it was just toxic. And you could be the most confident person, but as soon as you're in this room with this judge, you just feel so insecure. And I said, I never want a woman to feel like I did. I never want a woman to feel diminished. And that is my great and powerful why. Okay. I just want all women to step into their power, to know they don't need a man, to know that they can do whatever they want and give them that permission slip to go back to college at 65 if they want to go and travel by themselves, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's my great and powerful why.
Wow. I love that. It works for dudes too. I think everybody needs that sort of like inspiration, I guess is the best word. Yeah. To just say, if you're whining about like whatever you're whining about, stop, get up.
Right.
Go do
right.
something about it. Right. Yes.
Well, and that's what I talk about with my coaching. I am very much into mindfulness and law of attraction. And so I'm part spirituality, but I'm part practicality. You can do
Right.
all the mindset and law of attraction you want, but if you're sitting on your couch watching Netflix and eating potato chips,
Right.
it's not going to come to you.
Right. That's what you will manifest.
Right.
More potato chips and more Netflix.
And more Netflix. Which I sometimes do.
A quick little aside. During lockdown, we broke the law of California, my wife and I. So remember during lockdown, like they had like all these rules that were like lockdown rules, right?
Yeah.
One of these rules that we weren't even aware of was like you weren't able to book a hotel room without it being business related in California.
Really?
Right. Now the hotel didn't care.
Right.
So they would take the reservation, let you in, give you a key, but then they would have this awkward moment of saying like, this is a business related trip, right? And I just sort of like took the sort of like vibe and went, oh yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. No, we're watching Netflix in a different city. That's what we're doing.
Wow. I didn't know that was a rule. That's crazy.
It was a weird rule. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was similar to my dentist called me and said, you're due for a cleaning. And I'm looking at your chart and I think you probably have pain in molar number blah, blah. That's right, right? And I went, yes. And she said, yeah, that's right. Because there was a rule that said you can't have routine. But if you have pain and you're there already, then we can do your cleaning while you're here.
Right. Right. You just have to pick up on the signals.
Yes.
And some people are better at that than others.
I'm
like I find a lot.
I'm horrible at it.
Are you? Like, so you seem good at it.
No. I mean, these people are like taking a lot of time. I'm like, I'm not a good reader between the liner. No, I'm not.
Wow.
I'm like very face value, please, but given enough prompting and facial I
think that's a male thing because I'm always hitting always hitting my husband under the table.
Right.
And the worst is, oh my God, the worst is we'll be out somewhere. I'll hit him under the table and he'll say, why are you hitting me? And I'm like, oh God.
Right.
Oh God.
That's my wife.
Stop.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm good at being like sneaky getting away with stuff. How's that sound? So like my thing is sort of like gray man, right? If you ever saw me in a bar and I'm like on and trying to be the guy, right? Different personality, right? My ordinary walking around personality is just sort of like, who was that guy? Did you see that guy? I want to just sort of like blend,
Well, you actually, unbeknownst, hit on one of my things that I do with my coaching clients, because especially when we have limiting beliefs and don't feel good about ourselves, how we carry ourselves is really important.
Okay.
And so I always tell my clients, think of somebody who's either real or a character who you think is the baddest ass woman out there. Okay. And how would she walk and what would she say? And I did that. So I don't know if you ever watched Scandal, but Olivia Pope was my person.
Scandal.
So it was always
saw
like,
that.
what would
maybe.
Yeah, Kerry Washington. She's a badass.
Yeah. Okay. I remember that.
And great wardrobe. So I was always like, what would Olivia Pope do?
Right.
So I just personified Olivia Pope.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
You're scaring men when you do that. I like that.
Exactly. I like
that. Okay. So let's talk about like how to turn confidence into cash, because, hey, who doesn't need cash?
Yeah, right. So that is one of my key courses, and I just finished it up. I do it every year. Okay. And here's the thing, again, it goes back to the stories that we learned as kids. And usually, not always, but usually it was dad who took care of the money, dad who figured out the investments, dad who got the insurance. And to be honest, women couldn't even get a credit card until 1974.
So sad.
Women could not get a credit card. They could also, if you were not married, you could not get a mortgage without a man.
Wow.
So it's money stories, but it's also reality. So women were always taught, I don't have a head for money. Well, it's not that hard.
No.
They make it out to be complicated, and it's really not.
Right.
And so there's another horrible statistic. 66% of women have never negotiated for a raise.
That makes sense. I don't think I
66%.
ever negotiated for a raise.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. But
You just sat in that cubicle and you kept your head down.
Well, I had a very weird career, so I'm a bad example. I was in the military 20 years, right? You don't have raises.
Okay, yeah. You can't negotiate for a raise with a general. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
You just have to get promoted.
Right.
Yeah.
But so the whole point is, you cannot be confident about your money if you don't understand your bank balance, if you don't understand what your investments are.
Right.
And I hate to say it, but financial abuse is a very real thing. I have numerous clients who are given money by their husband.
Yeah.
They don't even know what they're signing. They don't even know when they have a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, that has been used up. Wow. And so the confidence comes from recognizing, understanding your entire budget, understanding your investments, understanding where the money's going. So if all of a sudden your partner is taking $100 out of the ATM every week, but you have no idea where it's going, chances are he's hiding something from you.
Yes.
So the confidence is gaining the understanding of your investments, of really taking hold of your budget. Look, before I declared bankruptcy, I was in such a bad place that I never wanted to look at my bank balance. I would just hope and pray and go to the grocery store that I wasn't going to overdraft.
That is very common. Very, very common. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I learned I have to be a big girl and every morning look at your bank account. That's confidence. And then you don't have all the problems that come along with it, because denying things doesn't work. Just doesn't.
Totally.
So I go through with women, first of all the past money stories, what they think about money. We then roll up our sleeves and really look at where you're spending your money, how you're spending your money. And look, budget doesn't have to be you cut out everything. Right. It's just deciding, what are your priorities? My priorities are traveling. That's what I care about. So I'll give up 2 brunches with my girlfriends if I can save the money to go to Greece. You know what I mean? Totally. It's just the priorities.
Yes.
And then it's planning for the future. What do you want to do? So many women are afraid they're going to be bag ladies under the Santa Monica Freeway underpass, right?
Right.
It's not true.
Right.
It's not true.
No. So like my wife is in charge of like credit card and checkbook. Now this is the way she likes it, right?
Most women do.
Yeah. So me too. Because like she'll chase me down once a month and say, you didn't give me this receipt. And I'm like, okay, accountant, now go find it. And it works great. So like she's really good at keeping me in check, because, men, right? Like I can't speak for all men, but me, like I'm like great in the morning. I start slowing down at lunch. And by evening, I just don't want to be bothered anymore. Right.
No. Right.
And like, she's like the opposite. She gets home from work and she takes like a little downtime. Like right when I want to go to bed, she's asking me questions.
Wow.
It works, right? But boundaries,
Whatever
boundaries,
works. Yeah.
boundaries. I was like, honey, I get it. I love you. Let's talk about that tomorrow, maybe when you get home from work, right? Because I'm in bed now.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that is not me. I am a morning person through and through.
Yeah, I get it. But like for the investment things, like after she has money, like, and she's like, okay, I've got too much money in the checkbook. Here's this much. Invest it and make it more. Right. That's kind of like, that's like the teamwork kind of thing that we've got going on.
But does she have access to all the investment accounts?
Of course.
See, that's fine. Then that works.
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't really like look at them all the time, but like every once in a while, I'll say, okay, here's your IRA, here's your not IRA, here's your traditional thing. Because like, I need her help to set up the accounts. She's just not as into it because there's nothing to do on a monthly basis, right?
But good for you for doing that, because I've also had, it doesn't even have to be a divorce. I had one client, her husband did everything. She had one in college, one that was a junior in high school. And I know you guys don't know this out on the West Coast, but an attic and a ladder coming down, and he fell from
Ooh.
the attic and immediately was a quadriplegic.
Oh my God.
She didn't have the sign in to pay the college loan. She didn't have the sign in for
Wow.
anything. She had to go to the hospital with the laptop to get everything. So that's why
Yeah.
it's important that everybody have the information
Right. Totally.
because you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. We went through that. I think it was when we did our will. Like
Yeah.
when I retired, she was like, I need all the passwords. I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You need to see all the passwords. Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's so many accounts. It's just like you just accumulate accounts and it costs money to like change them around. It's like,
well, but here's a little thing. You can go online and look for lost accounts. So I'll find the link for you, but it's a federal thing. And
Right.
like I forgot about, like a car insurance thing I had in LA or something,
Right.
but there was like $700 I found.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you never know.
Yeah, those things pop up like when you do like what is it? The what's that thing? Credit report. Like,
Yes.
I gotten into the habit of looking at a credit report.
Oh, yeah.
At least once a year, if not.
Absolutely.
Because then that'll pop up and then it'll be like, oh man, right. Sears?
Right. They've been out of business for 30 years, but I still got Sears.
Right. I closed that one. So let's talk about like what you talk about for your faith. Because I'm like reinvestigating my faith all the time. So
Nice.
where are you on the faith spectrum, as they say?
Oh man. It's very interesting. So whether it's God, spirit, whatever you call it, there's a higher power.
Yes.
There is an energy that is driving all of us. A very interesting story. So one of my dearest friends died 2 years ago of cancer. She knew she was dying, and we spent a lot of time together. And her
good.
son is the same age my son Connor would have been. And we made a pact that she would watch over my son in heaven and I would watch over her son down here.
Wow.
And my sign for my son is butterflies. Whenever I see butterflies, there's something that's going on with Connor around us. So
Okay.
Barb and I, my friend, decided we needed a sign. And at first it was going to be coffee. I'm like, oh, no. That's
too
not going
much
to work because you're going to be
coffee
around all the time. Right, too much. Can't do that. So we decided it was sunflowers. And
wow.
what was, And so when I was training for the marathon, I kept a picture in front of me. It was two women, just two random women running the marathon, and then a picture of my son and a picture of Barb. And the morning of the marathon, I just said a little message to both of them. Now, this is November and it's cold in New York. We're running through Brooklyn and all of a sudden there's a butterfly flying with me.
Wow.
We pass a church and there is 7 sunflowers in November growing.
Wow. My goodness. Hand to God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So when you ask about faith, man, I know I have tremendous faith. And I think faith means different things to different people.
Right.
But again, getting through those hard times in life, that's what gets you through. It's your faith in whatever it is, that the faith to know you are going to come through the other side. When I talk to families who've lost babies to SIDS now, they look at me 25 years down the road and I offer hope.
Sure.
But I also say, I'm the faith that you will survive.
Totally. Yeah. And that's heart-wrenching, you know? That grief, who am I telling, right? But to get through that and then smile on the other side, it's just like something that nobody should go through. But once you have that faith, you can tell yourself a different story. It's like, you know, and so I'm sure you did about your son dying and, you know, everything about like what that means to you, you know, it's never not going to hurt and that's okay. You know?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's always going to be there. You're never going to be completely the same. And sometimes people feel so weird when I say this. And it's not that I wouldn't want Connor back, but I am who I am today because of him. I wouldn't be coaching. I wouldn't be with this nonprofit. I'm me, and everything about me was meant to be.
Yes.
But it came because of him.
Right. It was like his like life journey, goal, partnership, contract, whatever you want to call it. And that's just weird, Amazing.
I know.
Right. Painful. Oh my goodness. Ugh, to live through that. Ew. I had some friends of ours while I was in the military. Where were we? I think it was my second trip to Japan with my wife. We had friends that she knew before, right? And then we met there, which was weird, right? And they had a kid that we knew and then died of SIDS. It's just like, it's like you don't even know what to say. We don't have language for SIDS or any infant death.
Well, we don't, as a culture, have language for grief.
Correct.
We don't know how to grieve. We think that those stages of grief are supposed to be linear, and they're not.
They're not. No. Right.
It could be anger one day, denial, negotiating, and you keep going round and round and round. And, I saw the fear in people's eyes when they came to talk to me because they didn't know what to say.
Right.
And so I was working at that large PR firm and I was senior vice president. So before I went back to work, I sent an email to everybody and I said, I know you're not going to know what to say to me. All you need to say is, I'm sorry, and tell me about Connor. Because parents want to know that no one's forgetting their baby. They want to say his name. They want people to ask because that keeps him alive for everyone.
Wow. Okay. That helps me.
I'm glad.
I had a coworker who's, I think she was like in her 20s and died of the flu. Like before COVID too. Like she was like 20 something. I can't remember what.
God.
Yeah. And she went through this thing where, she's going to the doctor and, they're giving her treatment and then she's hospitalized and then sent home and then dies. It's like, it's just crazy,
That makes you question things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And then you meet a person and you say, okay, who's this person on your screensaver? And then you get the story and you have no words.
Yeah.
Like you said, all you want to do is run away because you don't know how to act, how to feel. But now I know, right?
Yeah.
So like she gets like super vulnerable like around the anniversary days. So that was one of the things that I started to understand. It's like she's going to be gone for a week and I know why, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's the Jenna time. Right. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right. So for you, it's Connor time. Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's rough. So, hey, this has been a lot of fun, but let's start wrapping up now. So folks can get in touch with you. Say your website or whatever you want to say.
So it's Alison-Jacobson.com.
Gotcha.
And I'm on Instagram at _Alison Jacobson. And your listeners can go there. I have a free guide, 5 steps to release fear and live boldly. And it's under my courses freebies, which I think it really helps people understand that they can get past this.
Yeah. Hey, we're all in it. So true. And we can. That's true.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We've both been through some stuff. You more than me, I think. But
everybody
goes through it. Nobody gets through unscathed.
No.
Nobody survives childhood without being unscathed.
Right? I'm telling you, man.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. This has been a blast and sad and empowering and, faith in.
But also fun.
Yes. And also fun. Correct. I just have to say, we talked about some scary things. Not everything's a blast in life. Right. No. But thank you. I appreciate it. You have a good one.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye now.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.